Moving on to adding and subtracting algebraic fractions 2, and this is where the denominators are expressions. Okay, so you can see here our bottom lines and our longer numbers, they're expressions. Okay, so you still have to do the same thing, which is to get a common denominator, but the way you do it now, it's just not the same. You can't, like, if you look at a 2 and a 5 and you're like, oh, that's easy, that's a common denominator of 10. It's not like that now, okay? So what we do to get a common denominator of two expressions, you multiply them together. Okay, which hopefully will make sense. Like if I had 1 over 2 plus 1 over 5 and I was trying to find a common denominator, if you just multiply 2 by 5, you get 10. And the fact that you multiplied 2 by 5 to get 10 means that 2 must divide into 10 and 5 must divide into 10 because you multiplied them to get the 10. So you can divide the 10 by the 5 and you'll get back the 2, or you can divide the 10 by the 2 and you'll get back the 5. Okay, so they're all kind of combined. We use that to get a common denominator of expressions, okay? So the way you write the common denominator is simply x minus 3 x plus 2. Then I have my plus, and I write it again. X minus 3 x plus 2. Okay? So now, we do the same thing that you would normally do. You're going to change the denominator from being this to being this. So in order to go from x minus 3 to x minus 3, x minus 2, what do I have to multiply by? Well, what you have to multiply by is x plus 2. So if you multiply x minus 3 by x plus 2, you will get this. Yeah? And then exactly like we did on the other ones, if you have to multiply by that for the bottom line, then you have to multiply, sorry, I'm going to have to use a pen for this. Go back again. Then you have to multiply by x plus 2 on the top line. So whatever you need to multiply for your bottom line, you need to do the same thing for your top line, which means my top line becomes 2 times x plus 2. Yeah? Now let's look on the other side. So I'm going from x plus 2 to x minus 3x plus 2. So in order to go from this to this, I need to multiply by x minus 3. Because x plus 2 multiplied by x minus 3 gives me this denominator. But if I have to multiply that for the denominator, I'm going to have to do it for the numerator. So multiply by x minus 3. So that gives me 4 times x minus 3. Okay, that is the hardest part of these questions, what I just did there. Okay, so if you understand that, then you're flying. And it is just exactly the same as what we did before. It's just with awkward numbers. Keep asking yourself the same question. How do I get from this denominator to this denominator? Well, the only thing missing is the x plus 2, so that must be what's required. If that's what's required for the bottom, then that must be multiplied on the top. And the same over here. We carry on as normal. We merge now, so it's 2 times x plus 2 plus 4 times x minus 3. And that's all over a single denominator, so don't write it twice, just write it once. So x minus 3, x plus 2. Top line then you distribute, so the 2 goes across the first bracket and the 4 goes across the second bracket. So we have 2x plus 4 plus 4x minus 12. And the bottom line, we just leave alone. And then we check for our families. So I have an x, and I have a constant and a constant. So that is, So that is 6 for the x's and minus 8. And we write down the bottom line. And that's your answer. So you don't go any further than that. All right, so everything after the first line is exactly the same as what we did when the bottom line were numbers. It's just that first step. So you get the common denominator over here by multiplying them together. Now you don't actually have to do the multiplication, you just have to write them in brackets, remembering that brackets mean multiply. So this means x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 2. I don't at any point do the multiplication, I just write it down. Then you make your adjustments, and the adjustments are the part that everybody gets wrong. Once you've got the adjustments done correctly, everything else follows as it did in the last one. Okay, we'll try one more. I'm going to write it out because it was a bit squishy there at times. So 3 over 4x plus 1. So it's a subtraction, which means we need a common denominator. When the denominators are expressions, we get the common denominator by simply multiplying. So it's x by 4x plus 1. That's one of them. And then the same thing again, x by 4x plus 1. Okay, so then we going from this to this. What do we need to multiply by? We need to multiply by 4. I have to change that, sorry. Just got the red pen. So getting from this to this, we need to multiply by 4x plus 1. And that means we also need to multiply here by 4x plus 1. So I write down 4 times 4x plus 1. This one then, going from 4x plus 1 to this, what's missing? It's the x that's missing. So I need to multiply by x. So if I need to multiply by x there, then I need to multiply by x up here. So that becomes 3 times x. Merge. So it's 4 times 4x plus 1 minus 3 times x all over, and you write the denominator once, not twice. Okay, and then you distribute. So the 4 goes across here. There's not really much distributing in the second one. There's only one multiplication. So 4 by 4 is 16x, and then 4 by the 1 is plus 4, and then this is minus 3x, and that's over x times 4x plus 1. And then we have 2 from the x family, and this is just all by itself. So 16 minus 3 is 13x plus 4 over, and again you don't multiply out the bottom line, you just leave it as is, 4x plus 1. Okay, so have a good look at them. Please make sure that you understand where I'm getting, especially that first line from. Oh, that's very tick box. Okay, so make sure you understand where that getting from the question to this line is. Okay, once you get that second line there right, you shouldn't, like the merge and the multiplication is stuff we've been practicing for a while, so that should be fine. It's that very, very first line, okay? So to go from the question to this line, that's the key to these. Okay, so please let me know if there's any issues. I am giving you a couple for homework just to practice.